Good morning. Welcome back to class. This is International Trade 202 with David Ricardo's text, his seminal text, The High Price of Bullion. If in France an ounce of gold were not more valuable than in England, and would therefore in France purchase more of any commodity to both countries, gold would immediately quit England for such purpose, and we would send gold in preference to anything else because it would be the cheapest exchangeable commodity in the English market. So we're just going to do an exercise with international currencies or just currency. What are some currencies? The euro, right? So I guess in the 90s, there was the Eurozone where European countries like England, like France, um, like Denmark, like Sweden, um, like Italy, uh, even some former Russian countries uh, took on the Eurozone. Um, Most recently, England went back to the pound. The idea for the euro was there's a transaction cost for exchanging currencies. Even, in their stock market, the, uh, kind of the mental calculation. So what you have is more of a free trade zone. And again, Quantic is probably the best um, coursework as far as homework and things like and exercises um, to apply that knowledge. But if you don't have that knowledge and you take the test, there's four answers, you'll get one of them right, so you can kind of game that without understanding the background. As far as can people read this? What's this shaking and the windows. This looks like the stock market. How do we then, when I use a lot of power, the mouse breaks. I don't have a mouse. I have a touchpad. What's a touchpad? Is a tablet the key to the future in advertising? Should I use one or more tabs? Should I? Um, that's what we call advertising operations. There's no advertising. We're not talking about advertising. That's okay. But it's more like media buying. These are media company or media examples. Google, when we think about media, it's a form of communication. So a website is a supplier of typically ad inventory. So usually up top, 4.8, that's a review, that's an ad for this website. um there's an app store, that's an ad for a product. So that's why we called it advertising operations. Media buying is more buying into the idea that this is media and it's weaved together. And so, from a platform agnostic standpoint, it doesn't really matter. That's what it means. It doesn't really matter. It says from Morningstar. So you want to check your sources. Um, this morning on Instagram, I found, a sponsored ad from what I thought was a Marine Corps website that was not. That can lead to bad things like death, um, or torture. But other than that, you're pretty safe. Um, so if we were just to look at this, um, so $1, so for $1, you get less than €1. So the U.S. dollar is more powerful than the euro. For $1, you get maybe 1.4 euros. So if you were to go to Europe and you had $100, you might get 124 euros. Okay, so what do you buy with 124 euros? Let's say a Big Mac, right? A Big Mac is $10 in the US. So you can get, ostensibly, you can get two uh, Big Macs because you have that 24 extra euros in Europe. Now, in Europe, because McDonald's is an American company, the Big Mac might be A, more than 10 euros be less good than the US? Um, or C, both? And it's both, right? So that's called purchasing power parity, where again, the nominal value, 124 euros, would signify that you're richer, you're better off. However, the real value, the market value, in this case, might not be so. You also have to fly to Europe, right? So that could cost $3,000 to $4,000. So even if that $124 were nominally true, along with language barriers and things like that, from a purchasing power standpoint, your vacation might be better off spent in the United States. Now, if we were to look at change over time, I was talking to Sarah, and time is a constant variable. Seconds turn into minutes. Over the last month, the um, the let's see here. So this isn't a very good graph because we don't know. I guess they're euros on the left. They should There should be an identifier there. We'll get back to Morningstar on this. But the euro has strengthened. No, yeah, the euro was 0.85, so you get 125. Now you get 124.86. So the euro has strengthened against the dollar. So now we can do an exercise to kind of figure out why that's so tricky. So I'm buying media. Google Sheets is a substitute for Microsoft Excel, but you would have to have the knack because there could be things. All right, so currency manipulation. The idea is, on some days, like a Friday, you're lazy. So can you work when you're lazy? You know? Okay. So 0.86 be the same thing. So the exchange rate. Is $10 is equal to so we want to make this easier. So and then you drag it down. So 86, 9. Okay, so then we want to find out just we don't want a currency. So then for €1, how many dollars? So and we're kind of guessing here. People can't admit they're guessing. Right. So it is this. So it should be something greater than 1. There. And we can this there. So it wasn't $124. It was $116. So then we can look up the price of a Big Mac in France. $5.79. So here's media buying, which is more search related. Ad ops is more kind of persecutory force related. There's a Big Mac index. So 1986. So 120 is the exchange rate. It's 116 today. So I guess, is there a source of this data? Yeah, and these are called exchange rates. Purchasing power parity is a measure of the price of specific goods in different countries and is used to compare the absolute purchasing power of the country's currencies. PPP is effectively the ratio of the price of a market basket at one location divided by the price of a basket of goods. So we're working on our way towards a basket. The PPP inflation and exchange rate may differ from the market exchange rate. So the exchange rate is a nominal exchange rate. The market exchange rate includes kind of knowledge gaps. And this would be, the same from Ohio to Michigan. So here's like, in algebra, this can lead to problems, right? So like on a Friday you make this and it's like, you know, where are euros? But I can't get there because I didn't use Microsoft Excel. Custom currency. So this is add ops. But then do we need this? That's our work. So we'll leave it because this is a class, but in the real world, you don't need this. So the exchange rate, the nominal exchange rate, which is maybe what was asked in the real world, a great MTV show, is 1.16 per euro. And double click here. But yeah, that's the nominal exchange rate. You can see it in the formula. And this is kind of a budget or a budget constraint. Right, so on the y-axis, we're going to keep going. How would you graph that in theory? So how would you graph a budget constraint? Because in your other class, you're studying graphs, right, in micro and macroeconomics. So the y-axis is typically price and demand or supply. Or supply and demand. But this is advanced. So for you would want a price. So, or I guess quantity. No, we can stick with price. So, in media, sometimes you have spend, right? You have a campaign spend. However, because it's Google or TTD, they call it revenue. So that's why this is demand side and this is supply side. So the point there is people use different words, in fiction we call it synonyms. In business, you call it perspective. But, you might want to show someone your campaign spend, but not your revenue, right? Yeah. So, anyways, if we go back, we have the nominal exchange rate. We're trying to find many local factors to go on with PPP, such as the price of ingredients, local wages, policing, or how much it costs to put up billboards and buy TV ads, are a real world measure of purchasing power. So let's say someone makes $65,000 and they live in New York City. You make $45,000 and you live in Youngstown. They're new to New York City. You've lived in Youngstown for 25 years. Who's better off? Maybe. So now we're combining media buying and ad ops and looking at citations and primary sources. So The Economist, The Economist, The Economist, Investopedia, Corporate Finance, Institute, IKEA, GitHub. Maybe we can get a free trial. I think I might have. So this is where Marines really, this should be completely private. The word term is password protected. When you're literally typing in a password, even Iran doesn't hack email accounts for good Americans. If you think about if you're Iranian, the Marine military industrial complex will go down in case studies as Adolf Hitler does. So will American corruption as Joseph Goebbels does. All right. So now it's like really complicated, which is great. We can share this. And this is real time bidding. And your second thought there should be the auction, which is this going to help me get a job? And that's no. And that's what I mean. That's only possible if this is true. I'm open to work. Not one person from Google has reached out to me. Can anyone in Iran explain that? And now that we're completely distracted, we'll try to go on with our work. So let's see. So francs, pesos, krone, pounds, shekels in Israel, lira in Turkey, dinar in Bahrain, the real in Brazil. So we're trying to find, I guess, a price. Let's see. And this isn't allowed at work, I guess. So the US dollar to the, so if we use their euros 15.3% on, I guess it's overvalued. I don't know what that means. A big mass costs, oh, there it is, 529 in Britain and 612. So it's less in Britain, the implied exchange rate. But we were doing the euro. It's similar, 15.7, 15. Oh, there you go. 6.8. So again, it's less. Yeah, I mean, so this makes sense. The dollar's really weak, you know? That's what it reads like to me. The implied exchange rate is the same. So 608 and 612. So then that's a bad example. Let's do something like IKEA. Let's do a Camry France cost. So again, with sources, Toyota. All right, we're gonna have to stop there, but we made some progress. Let's write down, what is it called? A basket of goods. We'll save it, share it. We can't share it.